October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and this month I'll be covering this book called Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft, the worldwide bestseller on domestic violence and abusive men. So chapter 2 is about the mythology, and here it says that an abusive man works like a magician. His tricks largely rely on getting you to look off in the wrong direction. So what do? They try to distract you into focusing on the turbulent world of his feelings to keep your eyes turned away from the actual cause of his abusiveness. And that is the way that he thinks, which is like a very convoluted maze full of twists and turns. But if you actually understand how he thinks, then you will notice the pattern and logic of his behavior, and more importantly, the consciousness behind the craziness. To further direct your gaze, he will try to shape your view of his past partners. So this is a key red flag. If you meet someone and either they refuse to tell you anything about their past, or they try to paint all their past partners as crazy and bitter and out to get them, he does this intentionally. He does not want you to talk to them, and so he's preparing you to disbelieve them. So this is very, very consistent behavior from abusive men. And then also, he tries to fill your head with excuses and distortions to keep you weighed down with self-doubt and self-blame. They will concoct all sorts of explanations. But it says here, it is a serious error to allow abusers to analyze and account for their own problems. So I love that he gives this example of an alcoholic. He says here, would we ask an active alcoholic to tell us why he or she drinks and then accepts the explanation unquestioningly? This is what we would hear if it was an alcoholic. I drink because I have bad luck in life. I don't actually drink that much. It's just a rumor that some people have been spreading about me because they don't like me. I started to drink a lot because my self-esteem was ruined by all these unfair accusations that I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not. When we hear these kinds of excuses from a drunk, we assume they are exactly that, excuses. We don't consider an active alcoholic a reliable source of insight. So why should we let an angry and controlling man be the authority on partner abuse? Once you remove the excuses, then you are able to watch for the patterns in his behavior. In this chapter, he covers 17 myths that we have about angry and abusive men. Because there's so many and so many good points, I will only cover maybe up to 9 or 10 this round with a little bit of insight from each myth. Myth number 1. Is it because he was abused as a child? Multiple research studies show that there's a very weak link. But what is far more reliable is that men who are violent towards other men are often victims of child abuse. But the connection is much less clear for men who assault women. The one exception is abusers who are brutally violent. Then possibly they have suffered from child abuse. In other words, a bad childhood doesn't cause a man to become an abuser, but it can contribute to making a man who is abusive especially dangerous. If it was true that a man's abusiveness is because of childhood abuse, then psychotherapy would work. But it says here it's virtually unheard of for an abusive man to make substantial and lasting changes in his pattern of abusiveness as a result of therapy. Very, very important point. Myth number 2. He had a previous partner who mistreated him terribly, and now he has a problem with women as a result. So he's a wonderful man, except that B made him this way. In other words, he would describe his previous partner in a very derogatory way. And things like, for example, she cheated on me, she tried to control me, she turned their children against him, she even had him arrested out of vindictiveness. What he is describing usually are his own behaviors, but he attributes them to the woman so that he is the victim and he's able to gain sympathy from his new partner. And he gives a lot of examples of what an abusive man would say. In short, he can craft an excuse to fit any of his controlling behaviors. If it is an excuse for mistreating you, it is a distortion. Myth number 3. He's abusive because he feels so strongly about me. While there is a grain of truth to this, people we love do tend to trigger us more. The abuser wants us to accept the simple but erroneous formula that feelings cause behavior. Other reasons not to accept the love causes abuse excuse is that many people reserve their best behavior and kindest treatment for their loved ones, not the opposite. But unfortunately, there is wide acceptance of this unhealthy notion in society. So he cautions especially younger women against this, because a lot of times we think, oh, he's so jealous, and we feel like it's very flattering for someone to, display that kind of jealousy and control, but it is not. It is a huge red flag. Myth number 4, he holds in his feelings too much and they build up until he bursts. He needs to get in touch with his emotions and learn to express them to prevent those explosive episodes. So this myth is debunked by Lundy. He says most of his clients are not usually repressed. When he feels bad, he thinks that life should stop for everyone else in the family until someone fixes his discomfort. Again, they have never been taught or had to practice emotional regulation from childhood, and so now as an adult they're unable to do so. An abusive man does not have a problem with his anger. He has a problem with your anger. Myth number 5, he has a violent, explosive personality and he needs to be less aggressive. The great majority of abusive men are fairly calm and reasonable in most of the dealings that are unrelated to their partners. And the sad reality is that plenty of gentle, sensitive men are viciously and sometimes violently abusive to their female partners. So this two-sided nature of abusers is the central aspect of the mystery. There is a very deep societal stereotype that an abuser is a relatively uneducated blue-collar male, which usually equals to lower class. This unfairly stereotypes blue-collar workers as well, because they may not be abusive at all. It overlooks the fact that a professional or college-educated man has roughly the same likelihood of abusing women. In fact, this class and racial stereotype permits the more privileged members of society to duck the problem of abuse by pretending that it's someone else's problem. Women who live with abuse know that abusers come in all styles and from all backgrounds. Sometimes the more educated an abuser, the more knots he knows how to tie in a woman's brain. The more socially powerful abuser, the more powerful his abuse.